Minho stood in the center of the grand chamber and felt the weight of 200 alien species staring down at him. The chamber was built like an arena, with seats rising in circles around a single platform where he now stood. Crystal towers stretched above him, catching the light of three suns that hung in the purple sky outside. He had been coming to this place for 5 years now, representing Earth and all of humanity. Today would be his last time. The vote had just finished. Once again, the Galactic Council had denied humanity a seat on the Security Committee. Once again, they had asked for more from Earth. This time, they wanted 3 times as many human soldiers to guard the borders of Council space. 3 times as many young men and women to leave their families and risk their lives for species that did not even respect them enough to give them a real voice. Minho looked down at his datapad. He had prepared a speech. 30 pages of carefully chosen words, statistics, and appeals to fairness. He had spent weeks on it. Now, looking at the faces around him, he knew that none of it would matter. These beings had already made up their minds about humanity. They saw Earth as a young species, useful but not important. Strong enough to do the hard work, but too naive to deserve real power. Ambassador Minho, the council speaker said from his high seat. Velar was an ancient creature, covered in green scales that had faded to gray with age. His species had been traveling between stars when humans were still learning to make fire. He spoke with the confidence of someone who had never been truly challenged. You may address the council regarding the vote. Minho closed his datapad. The speech would stay unread. Thank you, Speaker, he said. His voice was calm and steady. I would like to review our history with this council. A few of the aliens shifted in their seats. They had heard complaints before. Minho continued. 30 years ago, humanity received an invitation to join the Galactic Council. We were excited. We thought we were joining a community of equals, working together for peace and prosperity. We were wrong. Now he had their attention. Several aliens leaned forward. Velar's eyes narrowed. In 30 years, we have given much to this council. We provide 80% of the military forces defending council borders. We run 90% of deep space rescue operations. We share our technology freely while others keep theirs secret. We offer medical aid, food, engineering support, and labor to build the things this council needs. Minho walked slowly around the platform as he spoke, making eye contact with different species. And what has humanity received in return? We are denied representation on committees that make decisions about our soldiers. We face trade restrictions that no other species must follow. Our colonies cannot expand beyond the borders you set for us. We are told we should be grateful for the chance to serve. Ambassador, this is not... Velar began, but Minho kept talking. Last month, we asked permission to establish a mining colony in the Delta sector. The request was denied, even though the sector is unclaimed. Yet when the Vex asked for the same thing 2 weeks later, permission was granted immediately. The situations were different, said Chixnall, the trade minister. He was an insect-like being with too many legs and a voice like clicking stones. The Vex have been council members for 400 years. They understand the responsibilities. We understand responsibility very well, Minister, Minho said. His voice was still calm, but there was steel beneath the words. We have buried 15,000 human soldiers who died defending council worlds. We have sent billions in aid to species who needed help. We have given and given and given. All we ask is to be treated as equals. Chixnall made a dismissive gesture with one of his clawed limbs. Your species has only been in space for a few centuries. You must earn your place, like everyone else did. This attitude of entitlement is exactly why humanity is not ready for greater responsibility. Minho stopped walking. He stood very still in the center of the platform. Around him, other council members nodded in agreement with Chixnall. They had all said similar things before, in different ways. Humanity was too young, too emotional, too demanding. They should wait another century or two. They should prove themselves more. They should be grateful for what they had. Ambassador Minho, Velar said, his voice heavy with authority. The council has made its decision. Humanity will provide the requested military support. We will revisit the question of Security Committee membership in 5 years. If you cannot accept this, perhaps your species is not ready to be part of this community. The threat was clear. Accept the terms or face sanctions, trade embargoes, maybe even expulsion from the Council. Humanity would be alone in a galaxy that suddenly seemed very hostile. Minho looked up at Veltar. He looked at Kixnal. He looked at all 200 species sitting in judgment of his people. For 30 years, humanity had bent over backward to please these beings. They had swallowed their pride and accepted unfair treatment because they believed in the dream of galactic unity. They had hoped that eventually, if they proved themselves enough times, they would be respected. But respect cannot be earned from those who have already decided not to give it. Minho opened his mouth and spoke 4 words that would change the galaxy forever. Then we are done. The chamber went completely silent. Aliens looked at each other in confusion. Velthar's head tilted to the side. "What did you say?" the speaker asked. "We are done," Minho repeated. He looked at the other humans in the chamber. There were 20 of them, representatives and assistants and guards. "Pack your things. We're leaving." The humans stood as one. They gathered their datapads and documents. They moved toward the exit with quiet efficiency. "Ambassador, you cannot simply walk out of a council session," Veltar said. His voice was sharp with anger now. "This is unacceptable behavior. Sit down immediately." Minho did not sit down. He did not argue. He did not make threats or demands. He simply walked toward the massive doors that led out of the chamber. The other humans followed him. "If you leave now, there will be consequences," Kixnal shouted. "Trade sanctions, restrictions on your space travel. You need us." Minho reached the doors. He put his hand on the scanner, and they opened with a soft hiss. He stepped through without looking back. Behind him, the council chamber erupted into chaos. Aliens were shouting, arguing, demanding explanations. Veltar was banging his crystal gavel, trying to restore order. But Minho heard none of it. The doors closed behind the last human, sealing away the noise and fury. In the quiet hallway, one of the younger diplomats looked at Minho with wide eyes. "Sir, what happens now?" Minho allowed himself a small smile. "Now, we go home, and we let them figure out how to run their galaxy without us." The human delegation walked down the long corridor toward their ships. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. None of them looked back at the chamber where they had spent so many years fighting for scraps of dignity. They were done fighting. Now they would simply walk away and let the council face the consequences of taking humanity for granted. Behind them, the chaos in the council chamber grew louder. But the humans did not hear it. They were already thinking about home. Daehyun watched the last transport ship dock at Kepler Station through the massive observation window. He had been the chief engineer here for 8 years, overseeing the construction of ship components for 73 different alien species. The station was enormous, a ring of metal and lights orbiting a gas giant, with manufacturing bays that could build anything from small shuttles to massive cargo vessels. His communicator buzzed. It was a message from Earth. Simple and direct. "Begin shutdown procedures. Come home." He had been expecting it. The order had gone out to every human facility, every research station, every colony and outpost across council space. Humanity was leaving. All of it. All at once. "Attention, all personnel," Daehyun said over the station-wide intercom. "This is Chief Engineer Daehyun. All humans are to begin packing immediately. We leave in 18 hours. Non-human contractors should collect any personal items and prepare for station shutdown." Within minutes, his office door slid open. A 4-armed alien named Trixol rushed in, his face showing clear panic. Trixol represented a manufacturing company that relied on Kepler Station for all their ship production. "You cannot shut down the station," Trixol said, his multiple hands gesturing wildly. "We have orders scheduled for the next 6 months. 17 species are waiting for their ships. The contracts are void," Daehyun said calmly. He was already packing his personal belongings into a small case. Pictures of his family, a few books, nothing else mattered. Humanity is withdrawing from all Council operations. But why? What happened? Can we negotiate? There is nothing to negotiate, Daehyun said. He looked at the alien with tired eyes. For 30 years, we built your ships. We made them better and faster than your own engineers could. We did it for fair prices, sometimes at a loss just to help. And when we asked for respect, we were told to wait, to prove ourselves more, to be grateful. He closed his case with a final click. We're done being grateful. Trixall stared at him, understanding slowly dawning on his face. But the 17 species waiting for ships, they need those vessels for trade, for transport. Then they should have treated the people building them with more respect, Daehyun said. He walked past the alien and out of his office for the last time. Across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out in 1,000 different places. Captain Sora sat in the command chair of her cargo ship, the Morning Star. She had been running supply routes to frontier colonies for 12 years. Her fleet of 30 vessels carried food, medicine, building materials, and everything else that remote settlements needed to survive. She charged barely enough to cover fuel costs. It was not about profit. It was about helping people. Captain, her first officer said, we're receiving distress calls from the Outer Rim colonies. They're asking about this month's supply run. Sora looked at the star charts on her screen. The colonies were marked in red, hundreds of settlements scattered across the edge of Council space. Many of them would run out of essential supplies within weeks without her ships. Send them a message, Sora said. Tell them that human cargo services are no longer available. They should contact Council Logistics for alternative arrangements. But Captain, some of those colonies don't have Council Logistics support. They rely entirely on us. They should have thought about that before their representatives voted to deny us a council seat, Sora said. Her voice was hard. Set course for human space. We're going home. Her first officer hesitated, then nodded and began inputting the new coordinates. The Morning Star and its 29 sister ships turned away from the frontier and headed toward Earth. Behind them, cargo orders worth billions of credits went unfulfilled. In a gleaming office building on the Council homeworld, Jiho was methodically shutting down the Human Technology Exchange Bureau. The Bureau had been his life's work, a place where human scientists shared their discoveries with the galaxy. Medical breakthroughs, agricultural techniques, engine designs, communication technology, all freely given to help other species advance. Director Jiho, his assistant said, walking quickly into the office. The Kelvar Medical Institute is asking about the cancer treatment data. You promised them. I promised them nothing, Jiho interrupted. He was deleting files from the central database, ensuring no one could access them after he left. The previous director made that agreement. I'm just the one shutting everything down. But people will die without that treatment data. The Kelvar have a cancer epidemic. Then the Kelvar should have supported humanity when we needed support, Jiho said. He felt a pang of guilt, but pushed it down. This was necessary. For 3 decades, we shared everything. Our best and brightest worked day and night to help species we had never even met. And what did we get? Trade restrictions, denied rights, mockery. He closed the last file and powered down the system. If they want our help, they need to treat us like partners, not servants. The most dramatic withdrawal came from the military. Commander Yuna stood on the bridge of the destroyer Indomitable, flagship of the Human Defense Fleet. Around her ship, 300 other human vessels floated in formation. They had been guarding the border between Council space and the hostile Dominion Empire for 15 years. Every day, they faced down enemy probes and prevented incursions. 17 battles, 15,000 dead, all in defense of species that refused to give humans equal rights. All ships report ready, Commander, her tactical officer said. Yuna looked at the strategic display. The border stretched across 3 sectors, marked by a thin line of defense stations. Her fleet had been maintaining 80% of the defensive coverage. When they left, there would be a gap so large that the Dominion could fly through without resistance. Broadcast message to all Council defense forces, Yuna said. Inform them that human fleet elements are withdrawing from border defense effective immediately. They are advised to redistribute their remaining forces to maintain coverage. Commander, the Council fleets can't possibly cover the entire border. They don't have enough ships. Not our problem, Una said coldly. Execute withdrawal. All ships to jump to human space on my mark. She gave the Dominion border one last look. Somewhere out there, enemy ships were probably already detecting the fleet withdrawal. They would be planning their attack within hours. All ships, Una said, her voice carrying across the communication network. Mark. 300 human warships vanished in flashes of light, leaving empty space where a defensive wall had once stood. On the Council homeworld, Speaker Velar tried to contact Earth for the 20th time. Every message went unanswered. Not blocked, not rejected. Simply ignored. It was as if humanity had decided the Council no longer existed. Get me Ambassador Minho, Velar ordered his staff. Use emergency channels. Official priority. We've tried, Speaker. The humans are not responding to any communication attempts. Velar felt something he had not experienced in 200 years. Fear. The reports were coming in from everywhere. Kepler Station shut down. Supply routes abandoned. Research partnerships dissolved. And worst of all, the entire human military fleet had vanished from the border. How many human personnel remain in Council space? He asked. His aide checked a datapad, his expression growing more worried with each passing second. None, Speaker. As of 1 hour ago, the last human transport ship left Council territory. There are no humans left anywhere in our space. Velar sat down heavily in his chair. Around him, the Council chamber was filling with representatives from dozens of species, all shouting questions and demands. They wanted to know when the humans would come back, when supply shipments would resume, when the military fleet would return to the border. Velar had no answers. For the first time in his very long life, he did not know what to do. Trade Minister Kixnall pushed his way to the front of the crowd. This is your fault, Speaker. You should have been firmer with them, threatened them with real consequences. What consequences? Velar asked quietly. What can we threaten them with? They are already gone. The chamber fell silent. The simple truth hit them all at once. Humanity had not asked for permission to leave. They had not negotiated or demanded concessions. They had simply walked away, leaving the Council to face the consequences of its own arrogance. And the silence from Earth was the loudest message of all. The first attack came exactly 4 weeks after the human fleet withdrew from the border. Defense Marshal Kronix watched the tactical display with growing horror as red markers appeared across 3 sectors. Dominion Empire warships, dozens of them, pouring through the gap that the human fleet had left behind. His own ships were scrambling to respond, but they were too few and too slow. Get the 7th Fleet to Sector 9, Kronix ordered. Move the 4th to provide support. Sir, the 7th Fleet is still 3 days away at maximum speed, his tactical officer reported. The 4th Fleet has only 12 ships operational. The humans used to cover this entire region with 200 vessels. Kronix felt his jaw tighten. His species had been warriors for 1,000 years, but their ships were built for honor duels and ceremonial battles, not the brutal efficiency of modern warfare. Human ships were faster, stronger, and equipped with weapons that his people could barely understand. Without them, the Council's military was exposed as weak. Do what you can, he said, knowing it would not be enough. On the frontier world of Talaxis, the situation was even worse. Dr. Hana sat in her apartment on Earth, watching the news broadcasts from her former workplace. A plague had broken out on Talaxis, spreading through the population at a terrifying rate. The local doctors were trying everything, but the disease was resistant to standard treatments. The cure required a combination of human medical technology and techniques that only human doctors had perfected. Hana's communicator kept buzzing with messages from Talaxis. Her former colleagues, her friends, begging her to come back. Begging for help. Please, Hana, one message read. The children are dying. We need the synthesis equipment that your team developed. We need your expertise. Please. Hana stared at the message with tears in her eyes. She had spent 6 years on Talaxis, teaching the local doctors everything she knew. She had delivered babies, saved lives, and made real friends among the alien population. And now they were suffering. She typed out a response. I cannot help you. I wish I could, but this is a decision humanity has made together. I am sorry. It was the hardest thing she had ever written. But if she went back now, if she broke ranks with the rest of humanity, the lesson would be lost. The council needed to understand that they could not treat people as disposable tools and expect those people to come running whenever they were needed. She deleted the message without sending it and turned off her communicator. She could not bear to see any more pleas. Trade Minister Kixnall was discovering his own nightmare. His entire business empire was collapsing like a house of cards. For 20 years, he had built his wealth on a simple model: buy human-made products at the negotiated rates, then sell them to other species at a massive markup. Human manufacturing was so advanced and so cheap that even with his profit margin added, the goods were still competitive. He had become one of the richest beings in the galaxy using this system. Now the humans were gone, and he had nothing to sell. "How bad is it?" he asked his financial advisor. The advisor, a nervous creature with too many eyes, consulted his datapad. "Complete collapse, Minister. Your inventory is sold out and there are no new products coming. The contracts you have with buyers cannot be fulfilled. You face penalty fees totaling—" "Oh no. How much?" 17 billion credits, Minister." Kixnall felt his world spinning. 17 billion. He would be bankrupted. His family would lose everything. And he was not alone. Thousands of merchants across Council space were facing the same disaster. The entire trading economy had been built on the foundation of human productivity. "Contact Earth," Kixnall demanded. "Offer them anything. Better trade terms, council representation, whatever they want. We have tried, Minister. The humans do not respond to any messages." Kixnall slumped in his chair. He thought about the last council session, when he had mocked humanity's entitled attitude. He wondered if the humans remembered his exact words. He was certain they did. The worst news came from the refugee camps. Pelmine was a leader among the displaced peoples, representing millions who had fled from various conflicts and disasters across the galaxy. For decades, these refugees had survived in camps scattered throughout Council space, living in tents and temporary shelters, waiting for the day they could return home. The camps had relied almost entirely on human aid: food, medicine, blankets, water purification systems. 70% of all supplies came from human charity organizations. The Council provided some support, but it was minimal compared to what humanity had given. Now the human aid had stopped completely. Pelman stood in Camp 17, looking at the empty supply depot. They had food for maybe 2 more weeks. After that, people would start starving. "The council says they will send supplies," his assistant told him. "When?" "They are not sure. They are trying to organize logistics, but without human cargo ships." Pelman closed his eyes. Without human ships, everything took longer. The council's own transport network was a mess of bureaucracy and inefficiency. It could take months to organize a proper supply run, if it happened at all. "Tell the camp leaders to start rationing," he said quietly. 1 meal per day for adults. Children get 2. His assistant nodded sadly and went to spread the word. Pelman stayed behind, looking at the empty depot. He had met humans before, had worked with the aid workers who came to help. They had always been kind, always willing to go the extra mile to help people they had never met. And the council had treated them like servants. Back in the council chambers, the emergency sessions continued day after day. Speaker Velar looked out at the gathered representatives and saw panic in their eyes. "We must take action," demanded one representative. "Threaten humanity with sanctions. Show them they cannot simply abandon their responsibilities." "What responsibilities?" asked another. "We never gave them any real power. We just took their labor and gave nothing back." "That is not true. We allowed them to join the council." "We allowed them to serve us," said a third voice. This was Counselor Zinn, one of the younger members. His species had always treated humans with respect. "Let us be honest. We used them. We took their technology, their soldiers, their aid, and we gave them scraps in return. Now they are gone, and we are seeing what we truly are without them." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some agreed with Zinn. Others refused to accept any responsibility. A few still insisted that humanity would come crawling back once they realized how much they needed the council. Velthar listened to it all with a growing sense of dread. In his 300 years of life, he had never seen the council in such chaos. 3 colonies had fallen to the Dominion. The plague on Talaxis had killed 5,000 so far. Economic collapse was spreading across 40 member species. Refugee camps were running out of food. And through it all, Earth remained silent. No threats, no demands, no communication at all. The humans had simply turned their backs on the galaxy and walked away. It was the most devastating response possible because it showed that humanity did not need the council. The council needed humanity. "Speaker," his aide whispered urgently, "we have reports of unrest on 15 worlds. People are angry. They want to know when the humans will return." "Tell them we are working on it," Velthar said, though he had no idea how to make that true. "And what about the military situation? Marshal Kronix says we have lost 2 more outposts to the Dominion." Velthar rubbed his tired eyes. The council military was being pushed back on every front. Without human tactical support and advanced weapons, they were losing badly. "Tell the Marshal to do his best," Velthar said. What else could he say? He looked around the chamber at all the species arguing and pointing fingers at each other. This was what the council had become without humanity to hold it together. A collection of self-interested groups with no real unity or purpose. Humanity had been the glue. The council had never realized it until the glue was gone. That night, Velthar sat alone in his office and did something he had not done in a very long time. He admitted to himself that he had been wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. He had believed that humanity needed the council more than the council needed humanity. He had believed that a young species should be grateful for the chance to serve. He had believed that respect was something humans needed to earn through obedience. All of those beliefs had been arrogant and foolish. The truth was simple. Humanity had been the best thing to happen to the Galactic Council in 1,000 years, and the Council had thrown them away. Jiwan had been a journalist for 20 years, covering stories across human space. She had reported on colony foundings, first contact situations, and the complex relationship between Earth and the Galactic Council. Now she was working on the most important story of her career. The documentary was titled, "What We Gave 30 Years of Human Service." She had spent 6 months gathering data, interviewing people, and compiling evidence. The numbers she uncovered were staggering. She sat in her studio on Mars, reviewing the final edit one more time before releasing it to the public networks. The opening sequence showed a simple question. What did humanity contribute to the Galactic Council? Then came the data. 93% of deep space rescue operations. Human ships had saved over 40,000 alien lives in 30 years, pulling stranded vessels out of dead zones, responding to distress calls that no one else would answer. Human agricultural techniques had increased food production on 47 different worlds. Billions of beings were eating better because human scientists had shared their knowledge freely. Human peacekeepers had prevented 16 civil wars through negotiation and mediation. Not through force, but through patience and genuine care for the people involved. Human engineers had repaired critical infrastructure on 212 worlds. Power grids, water systems, communication networks, all fixed or improved by human expertise. Human medical teams had saved an estimated 4 billion lives across the galaxy. Cancer treatments, surgical techniques, vaccines, and emergency response, all given freely. The numbers went on and on. Every sector of galactic society had been touched by human generosity. Then Jiwan's documentary showed what humanity had received in return. A list of trade restrictions, denied voting rights, limits on colony expansion, and 30 years of being treated as second-class members of the council they had done so much to support. The documentary ended with a simple statement. We gave everything. They gave us nothing. So we left. Jiwan released the documentary on every public network, both human and alien. Within hours, it had been viewed 1 billion times. Within days, it was being discussed in every corner of the galaxy. The reaction was mixed. Some species felt ashamed, finally seeing the truth of what had happened. Others became defensive, insisting that the documentary was exaggerated or biased. But no one could deny the basic facts. The numbers were real. On Earth, scientist Tai Yang was putting the finishing touches on his own revelation. He had spent his career developing advanced engine technology, sharing his research with the Council's scientific community. Now he was releasing one final paper before humanity cut off all scientific communication with the aliens. The paper was titled, "A Record of Theft, Unauthorized Use of Human Technology." Ta Yang had documented 47 cases where Council species had reverse-engineered human technology without permission. They had taken freely shared research and claimed it as their own invention. They had sold products based on human designs without paying royalties. They had even patented human discoveries under their own names. The same council that insisted humanity follow strict intellectual property laws had been stealing from humans for 3 decades. "Why are you releasing this?" his colleague asked. "It will just make relations worse." "Relations cannot get worse than silence," Ta Yang said, "but they need to understand what they did. They need to see the complete picture of their own behavior." He published the paper on the same day Jiwan released her documentary. Together, the two pieces of evidence created a tsunami of public awareness. Across the galaxy, ordinary beings began to question their governments and council representatives. Meanwhile, humanity itself was experiencing something unexpected, a golden age. Without the burden of supporting the galactic community, Earth and its colonies were flourishing. Resources that had gone to council defense were now invested in schools and hospitals. Engineers who had been building alien infrastructure were creating beautiful cities on human worlds. Artists and philosophers who had been too busy to pursue their passions now had time to create. The human economy grew by 30% in just 6 months. New colonies were established in systems that the council had previously forbidden. Innovation accelerated without the need to navigate council bureaucracy and get approval for every new idea. On Earth, children grew up hearing stories about the day humanity walked away from the council. It became a defining moment in human culture, a reminder that dignity and self-respect were more important than being liked or accepted by others. Ambassador Minho, the man who had spoken those 4 words in the council chamber, became a hero. But he did not see himself that way. "I just said what needed to be said," he told reporters. "Humanity deserves to be treated with respect. If others cannot give us that respect, then we do not need them." But not everyone in human space was happy with the situation. Dr. Hana wrestled with her conscience every day. She knew that people on Talaxis were dying. She knew that her skills could save them. But she also knew that if she broke ranks now, she would undermine everything humanity was trying to achieve. She was not alone in her struggle. Thousands of humans across Earth and the colonies felt the same conflict. They had friends among the aliens, people they cared about who were now suffering. It was hard to watch from a distance. In the council chambers, the crisis deepened with each passing day. Young Councillor Zin stood before his fellow representatives and delivered a speech that would be remembered for generations. "We have not lost humanity," he said, his voice carrying through the massive hall. "We drove them away. We took their generosity and called it obligation. We took their strength and used it for our own protection without giving them a voice in decisions. We took their innovation and claimed it as our own. And when they asked for basic respect, we told them to be grateful for what they had." Some councillors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others looked angry. But Zin continued. "Now we sit here and argue about how to force them to come back. Some of you want to threaten them. Others want to beg them. But none of you seem to understand the real problem." He paused, looking around at all the assembled aliens. "The problem is us. We are the problem. Our arrogance, our exploitation, our refusal to see humans as equals. That is why they left." "What would you have us do?" demanded one representative. "Apologize? Change our entire system for one species?" "Yes," Zin said simply. "Because if we do not, we will fall apart. The Dominion is conquering our worlds. Plague is spreading. People are starving. Our economy is collapsing. And it is all happening because we built our civilization on the backs of humans and then pretended we did not need them." Speaker Velthar sat in his high seat and watched the argument unfold. Counselor Zin was right, of course. Velthar had known it for weeks now, though it hurt to admit. The council had become exactly what it was founded to prevent. An empire built on the exploitation of others. They had taken a generous, hopeful species and used them until there was nothing left to take. And when humanity had finally had enough and walked away, the entire structure had begun to collapse. That evening, Velthar made a decision. He drafted a message to Earth, pouring every bit of his 3 centuries of wisdom into the words. He admitted every failure, acknowledged every injustice, and asked, not demanded, but genuinely asked, if there was any path forward. He sent the message and waited for a response. Days passed. Then weeks. Still nothing. The silence from Earth was not angry or resentful. It was simply the sound of a people who had moved on. Humanity had better things to do than answer messages from beings who had never respected them. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. You cannot exploit people forever and expect them to be there when you finally need them. Respect must be given freely, not extracted through service. And silence, as the humans had proven, can be the most powerful statement of all. 1 year after humanity walked away, Speaker Velthar stood in a simple human conference room on Earth and felt the full weight of his failures pressing down on him. The room was nothing like the Grand Council chambers with their crystal towers and dramatic lighting. It was just a basic meeting space with a table, some chairs and windows looking out over the city of New Seoul. There was no ceremony, no pageantry, nothing to mark this as one of the most important moments in galactic history. Across the table sat Ambassador Minho, looking exactly as he had 1 year ago. Calm, professional, and completely unbothered by the presence of the most powerful being in the known galaxy. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Velthar said. The words felt strange in his mouth. He had never thanked anyone for granting him an audience before. It had always been others who sought his time, his approval, his blessing. "You came a long way," Minho said simply. It seemed rude not to listen. Velthar had not come alone. With him were 5 other council members, including young Zin and, surprisingly, Trade Minister Kixnal. The minister looked like he had aged a decade in the past year. His trading empire had completely collapsed, and he had lost everything. "We have come to apologize," Velthar said, and the words felt like swallowing broken glass. "For 30 years, the council treated humanity with disrespect and ingratitude. We took your service for granted. We exploited your generosity. We denied you the basic rights that every other species enjoyed." He paused, meeting Minho's eyes directly. "We were wrong. Completely and utterly wrong." Minho sat quietly, listening. He did not interrupt or argue. He just waited for Velthar to continue. "I have spent 300 years leading the council," Velthar said. "I believed I understood wisdom and justice, but I was blind to my own arrogance. I treated humanity as servants rather than partners. I thought your youth meant you had nothing to teach us. I was a fool." Kixnal spoke next, his voice shaking. "I mocked you. In the council chamber, I called you entitled and said you needed to earn your place. I was thinking only of my own profits, not of the people who made those profits possible. My entire fortune was built on your labor, and I repaid you with contempt." He looked down at his clawed hands. "I have lost everything now. My business, my wealth, my reputation, and I deserve it." Counselor Zin added, "Not all of us were blind. Some of us saw what was happening and said nothing. That makes us guilty too. We should have stood up for you. We should have demanded the council treat you fairly. Our silence was cowardice." Minho listened to each confession without comment. When they had all finished, he sat back in his chair and studied them for a long moment. "Why are you here?" he asked finally. "What do you want from humanity?" "We want you to come back," Velthar said. "The galaxy is falling apart without you. The Dominion has conquered 7 sectors. Plague and famine are spreading. Our economy is in ruins. People are dying." He paused. "But that is not why we are really here." Minho raised an eyebrow. "Then why?" "Because it was wrong," Velthar said simply. "What we did to you was wrong, and we need to acknowledge that. Even if you never help us again, even if the council falls completely, you deserve to hear us admit our failures. You deserve an apology that is not just about what we want from you. For the first time since the meeting began, Minho's expression softened slightly. You understand that we do not need you, he said. Humanity is thriving. Our economy is stronger than ever. Our culture is flourishing. We have everything we need right here in human space. We know, Velthar said. That is why we are asking, not demanding. We have no leverage, no bargaining position. We are simply here to acknowledge the truth and ask if there is any path forward. Minho stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city of New Seoul stretched to the horizon, a gleaming metropolis of towers and parks and millions of happy people. This was what humanity had built in just 1 year when they were free to focus on themselves. I need to consult with my government, Minho said. Wait here. He left the room, leaving the council delegation sitting in silence. They waited for 3 hours, not talking, just sitting with their own thoughts and regrets. In a secure room down the hall, Minho met with Prime Minister Minji and Commander Yuna. They had been watching the meeting through hidden cameras, listening to every word. They seemed sincere, Minji said. She was a sharp woman in her 50s who had led humanity through some of its darkest days. But sincerity does not change the past. The question is about the future, Yuna said. The military commander stood with her arms crossed, her expression hard. Do we need them? No. Will helping them benefit us? Strategically, perhaps. But emotionally? She shook her head. They do not deserve our help. Millions of innocent people are suffering, Minho said quietly. People who had nothing to do with council policies. Children dying of plague, refugees starving, colonists being conquered by the Dominion. Not our responsibility, Yuna said firmly. Maybe not, Minho agreed. But is that who we want to be? A people who turn their backs on suffering just because we can? The three of them sat in silence, wrestling with the choice. It would be so easy to say no, to let the council face the full consequences of their actions, to enjoy their success and forget about the galaxy's problems. But that would change humanity. It would make them harder, colder, more like the species they had left behind. If we go back, Minji said slowly, it has to be on our terms, complete terms, no half measures. Agreed, Yuna said. Minho nodded and returned to the conference room. The council delegation looked up hopefully as he entered. Humanity is willing to resume cooperation with the council, Minho said, and he saw relief flood across their faces. But there are conditions, non-negotiable conditions. Name them, Velthar said immediately. First, complete restructuring of the council government. Equal representation for all species, including humanity. One species, one vote. No exceptions for age or seniority. Velthar nodded. Agreed. Second, immediate cessation of all exploitative trade practices. Fair market rates for all goods and services. No more special restrictions on human colonies or businesses. Agreed. Third, formal recognition of human sovereignty and rights. Our colonies can expand wherever we choose. Our technology belongs to us, and we decide who we share it with. Our military serves human interest first and council interests second. Agreed. Fourth, a truth and reconciliation process. Every species that benefited from human labor without fair compensation will acknowledge it publicly. Every theft of human technology will be admitted and compensated for. The historical record will show exactly what happened. Velthar hesitated for just a moment, then nodded. Agreed. And finally, Minho said, his voice taking on a harder edge, humanity returns as partners, not servants. We help because we choose to, not because we are required to. Any future cooperation is voluntary. We can walk away again at any time, for any reason. Understood and agreed, Velthar said. Minho looked at each member of the delegation in turn. If the council ever forgets these lessons, if you ever again treat any species as less than equal, humanity will not just walk away, we will remember. And we will make sure the entire galaxy knows what you truly are. The threat hung in the air like a sword. We will not forget, Velthar promised. This year has taught us what we are without you. We will not make that mistake again. 3 weeks later, the first human medical ships arrived at Talaxis. Dr. Hana was aboard, leading a team of specialists. They brought the cure for the plague and began saving lives immediately. 3 human cargo fleets resumed supply runs to frontier colonies, though now they charged fair market rates instead of operating at a loss. Commander Yuna brought 50 warships back to the border, not 300. The Council would have to provide its own defense forces for most sectors. The humans would help, but only as partners, not as the primary military. On Earth, the decision was debated endlessly. Some people thought humanity should have stayed away. Others believed compassion was more important than pride. But everyone agreed on one thing: they had proven their worth. No one would ever take humanity for granted again. In the rebuilt council chambers, a memorial was installed in the main hall. It was a simple black stone with words carved in every language of the galaxy. We walked away, remember. Every council member who entered the chamber had to pass that stone. It was a reminder of the year of silence, of the consequences of arrogance, and of the species that had been strong enough to leave and compassionate enough to return. Velthar stood before the stone on the day it was unveiled. He was retiring from his position as speaker, accepting a young counselor from a different species as his replacement. His time was done. The old ways were done. "What does it mean to you?" young Zine asked, standing beside him. "It means that true strength is not the ability to dominate others," Velthar said. "It is the ability to walk away from those who do not value you, and the wisdom to return when you choose to, not when you are commanded to." Humanity had taught the galaxy that lesson, and the galaxy would never forget it.